Hey there. Well, hey there. I don't know if that started right. It's your old pal Keith from groups.com. Um, and I wanted to do a little show and tell about something I've been working on that relates to bulk creating things. Now, in Bubble, um, we can only create one thing at a time with the create new thing action, right? And sometimes there are cases where we might want to create multiple things at once, or, basically at once. And our options in Bubble are fairly limited if we're going to stick with just the simple, actions that are built in. Um, but there is another interface that you could access through the API connector that's called the bulk item creation interface. Let's see here. Where are we going? Let's go over here. If you search the Bubble docs for bulk create, you'll find a couple different articles on this. You'll find in the article that's on data API requests. If you have your data API exposed, you actually have a bulk creation endpoint where you can create multiple things of a certain type at once. And the documentation here is pretty good. The screenshots, let's see, that's not the bulk creation screenshot. The screenshots are kind of right, like this one. This one relates to, it's talking about using Postman here and how you would use Postman to kind of troubleshoot things or set things up initially. Now, I had never really experimented much with the bulk creation API. Folks like Jared Gibb, who I greatly respect and is a smart guy over in the Bubble forums, uses this technique to create multiple things at the same time and really likes it. And I had actually never explored how much faster it is than using like a recursive workflow. I have a video. I'm not going to like recap all of those kind of issues, but I have a video that I did some time ago that was kind of about how you might build a shopping cart, and if you didn't want to create the line items for your order as the user is building them in the cart, but you just wanted to like save maybe to local storage, like using my Floppy plugin, for example. Maybe you just wanted to save the quantities and the products in parallel lists. You could conceivably send them to the back end and create the things that represent those line items using a recursive workflow. And my plugin called List Popper and Friends is very helpful in this context because it lets you, one, have lists that have duplicate items in them, and then in the back end, like pop those off of the list without collapsing any duplicates, which can screw you up. It also does fancy stuff like supports empty values and things like that. So, that's like the typical way that we might, create things. Now this is kind of slow, right? A recursive workflow. It's not particularly snappy. But check this out. So if we use the bulk create API, I'll talk about this in a little bit more detail, but let's do a demo first. If we use the bulk create API, clicking this button creates like 4 different things, right? The parameters for 4 different things. These are my favorite thing objects that I've been demonstrating Floppy with. They're just simple objects that, have a name and a value and some other fields on them. In this case, what I'm just doing is I'm creating like 4 different names for my things and giving them 4 different values. And then I'm calling the bulk create API to make them. And so let's see how long it takes to make 4 items. Boop. Well, that was pretty fast. That took 317 milliseconds. That's pretty cool. Now, you will note that over in my, that was a weird sound. Sorry, I shouldn't have made that sound. Why did I do that? You'll notice it back in my edit mode. If we go to my API connector, the interesting thing here is I don't even think I have an API call set up for, let's see, here's my own app. Parse raw iCal. No, that's not it. Custom data types. Favorite thing get. Let's see. Yeah, you'll see. I've got a data API call for like getting an object, but I don't actually, well, it's not even configured. I don't have any API calls set up in my app to even ping my bulk creation APIs for favorite things. How am I accomplishing that? Well, I've been working on a new plugin as part of Floppy that's called Bulky. Where is Bulky in this page? I don't see him. Where are you, Bulky? Let's see. Do I have a Bulky in here? He doesn't have a cute icon yet. I'm probably just looking right past him, huh? There it is, Floppy Bulky. Oh, he has a funny. He has a. I copied him from the date range processor plugin. Okay, that's funny. I thought that was date range processor. It's not. So this is obviously very much a work in progress. What this plugin does is, and you'll see it actually. I don't think it has any. I don't think it has any front end sort of things. Oh, it does. So in the front end, you can do things like set its icon color. You can set the type of things that it understands how to make, blah, blah, blah. This isn't a demo of the finished product. But what I've done here is I've given it the capability to create favorite things and orders. And what I do in this plugin is when it's initialized, I actually go out to your Swagger spec. So Swagger is a format that describes an API, and it describes your data API. And it's unless you manually turn it off, it's always out there. This is how my Swagger file looks for this app. And if you parse through this, you would see that it describes all these endpoints for like modifying different kinds of things and creating things. And then there's kind of a secret feature that is well documented again over here in the data API requests articles. Just search for bulk create. It's sort of a secret endpoint. So if you add /bulk to the end of one of the creation endpoints, you can send this kind of funny format. It's pure text, but you describe the fields and what their new values are. So this example is like the data type is a rental unit, and so the unit has a name, and then the unit has a number. And so that's the simple example here. I guess I forgot to say that some of the documentation, I don't see it here. Maybe this has been fixed. Some of the documentation was wrong because it had like curly braces and stuff in it, which is just, that would be dumb. That would be obviously wrong. We don't use curly braces when we're doing JSON type stuff. Anywho, what I do is I ping the Swagger spec for your app and parse it and automatically identify what things are available for the bulk creation API. Okay. And then when I hit this bulk create button, what this does is it executes an action. Let's see, where is bulk create? Let's look at this function bulk create. So bulk create things, Floppy Bulky A. And then I can just tell it, here's the type of things. And this is a very simple interface right now. I might expand this in the future, and we'll talk about why I might not in a minute. But what I do see is I say, let's create some favorite things. I'm going to fill in the field called synonyms, and then I have an expression that gives me the values I want for my synonyms. I've got a field that lets me select the name field on favorite things, and then I've got an expression that resolves to a list of texts that gives me those. And then for values, I'm doing the same thing. I've got an expression that's going to resolve to a list of numbers, and it just goes off and creates those things for me. And what it does is it automatically identifies the Swagger endpoints. There are some challenges with using the bulk data API. Like, for example, and also, whoops, whoa, hey, I went real big there. There's some challenges in that you kind of have to search through your Swagger spec to see like what bubble thinks the name of your objects is. They kind of use a convention where they remove any spaces. There are special characters that might get mangled. The spaces get removed. Underscores, I think, might get removed. Anyway, it's very different, actually, than how fields it could look when you're in a pull down in the editor. And it's also different from the names of these fields that we get inside of a plugin. So I actually put quite a bit of code in there to do a nearest match search. So what I do is I take the name of these fields, I convert them in the way that Bubble would usually do it, and then just in case that's not entirely correct, because you may have initially named some field one thing and then changed its label later, and Bubble in this case won't update like the internal name of that field. It's kind of set in the database, so you're kind of stuck with its original name. So, and I just felt like doing some fancy stuff like that. So it does like a nearest search for what's the field that's most like the one that you're selecting here if it's not exact. And then it just goes and creates the payload that you need to bulk create things, which is it's a strange payload. It's raw text. It's not JSON, but each line of it describes a JSON object, and then that API goes, when you ping your bulk API, it goes and creates those objects, but it doesn't just return to you like a simple list of the unique IDs of those objects. It returns like a status, like whether it succeeded or failed in creating that item, and then if it was successful, you'll find the unique ID there. This is still a step away, right, from actually having the list of objects returned to you. In this plugin, what I've done is I have it so that it actually returns the actual things to me. So, we parse the response from the API and then shoot them to an output. So you can see here I've got floppy A's created things list 1, format as text. So that gives me the names of my bulk created objects. Let's try another thing that I'm not sure I have set up right yet. We're also using, I hadn't talked about Polyhedra at all. I published this plugin, it's a free one, called Polyhedra that simulates rolling polyhedral dice, for like tabletop role-playing games and stuff. But it also has a couple of actions for just making it easy to make lists of random numbers. So let's make a list of like 600 random numbers. And then based on these random numbers, we're going to create favorite things from them. And we'll use the bulk client-side creation here that's in Floppy Bulky. So I'm going to click this, and let's see how long it takes to create 600 objects. Now, it's, this would take a significant amount of time if you did this as a recursive backend workflow. Well, let's see if it times out or what happens, right? I don't know. Okay, so we just click that. Oh, there we go. In my console, it's telling me all of the things. Did it create them that fast? Oh, that's just the payload. That's just the payload. All right. Oh, look, my objects are back. Okay, that was 600 items. It was created in 13 seconds. Pretty darn good. I mean, for smaller numbers, of course, this is going to be even faster. I mean, how many products is someone going to say you're, building an order, like a shopping cart? How many things is someone going to buy in one order? Not, it's not going to be 600 unique line items. Like maybe if you're a big shopper, maybe you'd have 60. Let's try that real quick. Oops. I mean, I made my list, but I didn't actually push the button now, did I? So I made my list of 60 numbers. It's down there off the screen. Forgive my ugly page. I like to build these ugly pages when I'm testing. So let's do create 60 items. Oh, wow. 467 milliseconds. Now that is super freaking awesome, right? Now, there's an issue here. Because this capability, I have to have a key to do this, right? I have to issue myself a key for my, for my apps. What am I trying to say? I have to issue a key for my app's data API, right? Because I can't just have anyone going in there and, just creating objects or modifying them or deleting them, God forbid. And because there's no way to keep this key from being exposed in the front end, you would actually never do things this way. So unfortunately, while this is awesome that I just created like 60 objects in 400 milliseconds, unfortunately you can't use this except in certain contexts. Like you could never expose this to like a public facing page. right? You could have this in an admin page. Like if you needed to, if you're trying to populate your database and you need to create a bunch of objects like algorithmically, and you don't want to pass them to a backend workflow, you could use this plugin. You could use the Bulky plugin. But the main purpose of the Bulky plugin is to actually ping your Swagger file and spit out some JSON that we can then use on the back end to do this same trick. So as a companion to the Bulky plugin is this bulk create SSA action. So this is a server-side action that has a very similar interface. I guess maybe we could take a look at it. Let's see, bulk create SSA. Let's look at your workflow. So this SSA, and by the way, these plugins are actually in the latest version of Floppy, but they are not ready for prime time. You are on your own if you're going to mess around with them. I'm not going to really answer any specific questions about them right now because these aren't done. They're not done and they're not baked, but I just wanted to demonstrate this capability. So again, like we did in the front end, in the SSA, we select a type of thing that we want to make. We select the fields that we want to populate, and then we have a list expression here that evaluates to the right type. Now, one thing that is kind of fancy and advanced about this, and it's unfortunate that it is this way, is that I can't constrain this field to be of the right type. So like you have to know for yourself, and you should as the app creator, you have to know that a name field is a text, and that this list of values for that field has to be a list of text. The issue checker will not catch this. This is a limitation of this kind of interface. Like if I can select a type of things and then I can show you its fields, but in that case, I can't easily map, or not at all, actually. I can't map the type of this field to this. So this is a very strange field. You'll only see this in plugins. There are no fields in Bubble that are anything like this, but this is a field of type anything. And so you can write any expression here, and the plugin can ingest that. And the reason that you don't see these kind of fields much is that they're mostly useless. If we need to output some kind of data, like let's say that I have a plugin that's going to process a list of numbers, or say just process an arbitrary type. Think of list shifter or floppy, right? You have to tell me the type of things you're going to work with so that I can output things of those type to some output, because we can't set the type of an output dynamically in plugins. So that's always like under your control and your responsibility. Now in this case, these things take any type of data as long as it's a list, and also they may not complain if it's not a list. But anyway, so setting up my SSA, right, I'm going to create favorite things. We're going to give them a name. We're going to a value. And now what this is going to do is this code executes on the back end. And instead of pinging my Swagger file, because that would be kind of, it'd be sort of dumb to do that every time, right? It'd be this extra fetch of data that I'd have to do to figure it out. What we do is the Floppy Bulky client-side plugin spits out some JSON for you to use. And so you just take that JSON and you put it in here. So this is what I discovered from your Swagger file, and that Bulky told me, here's the information I need, and you just paste that in as text. And so now this SSA knows all about your bulk creation endpoints, and it can also do the trick where it's like, if these values don't exactly match up with how they are expressed in the Swagger file, it does that like closest search. Okay, so let's go back over into our run mode, and let's see. Where are we? There we are. There we are in our run mode. Let's check out the SSA. So again, like I did over here, I'm going to refresh this page, even though it's going to be painful because it's going to take a little time. But I can't see my numeric list anymore, and that's bothering me. So I'm just going to refresh. The other thing is, I'm probably going to have to log in. Yeah, I'm going to have to log in because I'm hiding these buttons from you creeps. Okay. Log in. So you have to be an administrator to see these. And I have this set up wrong. my visibility rules are not working quite right. After I log in, it doesn't automatically show me a thing. Okay, fine. Show me my buttons again. There they are. Okay, so let's do this. Let's create, I know, let's do like 100 items. We'll make a numeric list. And again, what I'm doing is just I'm creating the names and values from this numeric list. And then let's do bulk create SSA. So this will be 100 items that we're going to create now all at once using the bulk create API. I'm going to click it. And of course, there's cold start time with SSAs. So the instance that runs the plugin has to spin up. So that's about 4 seconds of this. And so like if that plugin hasn't been running in a while, it won't be spun up in Bubble's AWS backend. But we can see here I actually spit out, there's my 100 items. That did not take long at all. And then as part of the response, which actually sends the things back to me, we actually see the creation time within the plugin. So these 100 items were created in, what is that? 1,000 milliseconds. That's really good inside of the plugin. So it appeared to take about 5 or 6 seconds on my side. And of course, if you're doing this, you would display a little waiting indicator or something until the SSA returns. But that's pretty impressive. And now that it's spun up, it should be faster this time. I might have been talking too much, and it's spun down now. But 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, creating 200 objects. Yeah, inside the plugin that took and that's the entire call, right? Like that's the call to your API, the time to parse the objects and then send them back to the front end. So that was 3 seconds to create 200 objects. Super cool. For smaller numbers, what about 60 items like we did before? We'll do bulk create SSA. Now this is completely safe. This is free from the issues I was talking about where my key might get exposed. Like this is why some APIs are only like server side, right? Because they involve a key, and you can only safely exchange keys between like systems that don't have a front end user interface like a web browser. Let's see. So that gave me 60 objects in. Let's see, inside the plugin. I don't want to look at your prototype. I want to look at your values. Like 400 milliseconds. Pretty awesome. And again, I didn't have to configure the API connector. So, like me, I'd never bothered to do that, to play with the bulk creation API, just because like I find it a pain. Like I have other APIs like I want to configure, right? Like you probably noticed I have a little GPT-4 API going here in this project, because that's fun to mess around with. And GPT-4 and I are good friends now. You might have seen my videos about that. So anyway, that is a forthcoming feature in Floppy. Again, don't F around with it right now. It's not ready for prime time, but this explains kind of the basics of how it works. And I think it's kind of a cool idea that you can just go out and inspect your own Swagger API, or the plugin does it for you, and then goes, okay, I know everything about your bulk create endpoints now, and then you can safely and very rapidly create things on the server side. Let's try one little stress test. I haven't really. So there's a limit to how many items you can create. It's 1,000, and none of those kind of limits are in my plugin yet. But let's make a list of 800 numbers, and let's try to bulk create 800 things and see if this causes a problem. The other thing I want to look at when this is done, I want to look at the capacity impact. So the docs say that you've got to be careful about the capacity impacts, but honestly, I'm not seeing much capacity use. If you try to use like list shifter or floppy step mode to like iterate over a workflow, that was pretty quick. Hold on. We'll get back to what I was saying in just a second. We'll check the time on this. Let's see. Creation time. They have 17 seconds to do 800 items. Okay. That's fine. Let's go back to our logs and let's look at our capacity from like 10 minutes ago. Oh, I might be using some capacity here. We can kind of see this. Let's see. Oh, no, I'm not. 10 minutes to now, right? That's 10 minutes ago. to now. Learn to type. Well, look at this. This is just this is the personal plan. I mean, I consumed like 3% CPU, maximum capacity. I didn't come anywhere close to maximum capacity. And I just created, like, what did we create in this video? Like more than 1,000 objects. I mean, we just created 800 right now. So this looks like a very fruitful thing to apply in your own apps. And I've made it, easier and more fun to use. Anyway, it might be a week or two before these things are done. But that's something that's coming in Floppy. Again, Floppy is available in your plugins tab. It's $12 to buy it once, and it has a bajillion different features and new ones that I'm creating all the time. And the price will go up. So go check that out. Add Floppy to your app, and take advantage of the stuff it does now. And then just know that in the future it will keep having cool features, because most things that I make going forward, unless they're radically different from Floppy, will go into the Floppy plugin collection. And there you go. And hey, if you just enjoyed this presentation, go to groups.com/karma. That's GRUPZ.com/karma, KARMA, and you can send me a tip. I like that when people tip me. A lot of people out there using List Shifter and my other open source plugins who've never sent me a tip. It's like, come on, man. Give a brother some skin, huh? All right, I will talk to you later. Peace out. Bye.